the other person begins. You tell yourself that love requires sacrifice, that it is natural to give a part of yourself for the sake of someone else. But what happens when you give too much? When your happiness, your peace, and your emotional well-being become tied to another person's actions or their absence. The more you give, the more pieces of yourself you start to lose. Slowly, you begin shaping your entire world around their needs, their moods, and even their silence. What once felt like pure love gradually turns into dependency. Their behavior starts controlling your emotional state. Their silence begins to feel heavy. You start asking yourself, who am I without them? Their choices begin to determine when you rise, when you fall, and when you feel complete. It becomes easy to lose sight of yourself when your attention is constantly focused on someone else. But here is the truth: attachment, when left unchecked, becomes a silent prison. When we tie our worth to another person's behavior, we give away our power. We allow them to influence our happiness, our peace, and our emotional balance. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a powerful guide. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the only thing we truly control is what exists within us. You have power over your mind, not over external events. Yet how often do we forget this? How often do we allow someone else's behavior or presence to determine how we feel? Emotional attachment, in its rawest form, is the silent agreement we make when we allow someone else to control our emotions. Detachment, however, is not about pushing people away or becoming emotionally numb. It is not about turning cold or uncaring. True detachment is about reclaiming your inner peace. It is about regaining control over your emotional world. It is remembering that your worth does not depend on someone else's approval, behavior, or presence. Your worth exists within you. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from within. When you release attachments that drain your energy, you rediscover your strength and clarity. It means stepping back from the grip someone else has on your emotional well-being and taking your control back. Letting go does not mean abandoning love. It simply means you stop tying your happiness to someone else's actions or their absence. It means you no longer allow their silence or presence to control your emotional state, and surprisingly, it is not as painful as it sounds. When you detach, you are not losing the person. You are releasing the emotional dependency that made you feel incomplete without them. The real key to detachment is realizing that your emotional freedom comes from your ability to stand on your own. It may seem difficult at the beginning, but once you start, the layers of dependency you built over time begin to slowly fall away. As you begin detaching, you realize that the control you believed they had over you was never truly theirs. It always belonged to you. And when you reclaim it, the chains that once held you start to break. Those emotional patterns begin to fade. What you once believed was love might have been an illusion. What remains is your sense of self, your inner strength, and your ability to stand alone without feeling incomplete. As detachment grows, you will not feel empty or heartless. In fact, you may begin to feel more complete than ever before. When you remove someone's control over your emotions, you create space for a deeper connection with yourself. You begin rebuilding your sense of worth, not through another person's eyes, but through your own understanding. Detachment is not a rejection of others, it is the act of reclaiming your own peace and power. So why do we attach ourselves so deeply to people, even when it hurts us? Why do we allow someone to have that much influence over our lives? The answer often lies in fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of losing the connection we worked so hard to build. But when you start to detach, you begin to see that the things you feared losing were never as essential as you believed. You are not losing love, you are gaining freedom. And that freedom allows you to love not from a place of need, but from a place of abundance and self-respect. Detaching is not about rejecting people. It is about rejecting the emotional chains that make you dependent on someone else. The power to reclaim your peace has always been within you. The moment you realize this, you stop waiting for someone else to give you the peace you deserve. Instead, you begin building that peace inside yourself. When you look inward and detach from the external forces that define your worth, you rediscover your true self. And that self is more than enough. Think about the last time you held on to someone who did not truly value you. At first, it feels like you have lost something irreplaceable, something meaningful, something that once made you feel whole. The weight of that loss can feel unbearable. It may feel as though a part of you has disappeared. The emptiness they leave behind feels like a void that can never be filled. But the reality is different. What you lost was not the person themselves. What you lost was the fantasy you created around them. The illusion that they were the one who could complete you. The dream you built about what they would eventually become in your life. This fantasy keeps you trapped in an emotional loop, convincing you that if you hold on long enough, things will eventually change. But here is the difficult truth. When you let go, you are not just releasing the person. You are releasing the dream of who you hoped they would become. The moment you let go of that illusion, the weight slowly begins to lift. At first, it may feel like loss, but in reality, you are gaining clarity. It is like clearing away a fog that once clouded your vision, and suddenly everything becomes easier to see. The fog of fantasy convinces you that love alone can change someone or transform them into the partner you imagined. But true love is not about reshaping someone to fit your expectations. It is about accepting them for who they truly are, even if that acceptance means letting them go. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Letting go is not about their absence. It is about your decision to walk a path that no longer depends on them. The longer you hold on to someone who does not value you, the more you betray yourself in the name of love. You begin making excuses for them, justifying their behavior, and silencing the inner voice that tells you something is wrong. You become so attached to the idea of them that you ignore the truth about who they really are. You convince yourself that if you love them enough, they will eventually change and recognize your worth. But love does not work that way. Real love is not about constantly needing someone else to remind you of your value. It is about recognizing your worth regardless of how someone treats you. When you finally understand this, the fog clears and the situation becomes visible for what it truly is. Letting go of someone who does not value you is one of the most difficult things you will ever do because it forces you to face the truth. They were never the solution to your happiness. But the truth is simple. You are not losing something real. What you are losing is the fantasy, the dream of what could have been. And when that illusion fades, clarity begins to take its place. This clarity does not come easily, and it does not come without discomfort. At first, it can feel painful, almost as if a part of you is being pulled away. But once that space opens, something powerful begins to happen. You begin rebuilding yourself. You begin focusing on your growth, your purpose, and the things that truly matter. Letting go is not a betrayal of love. It is an act of self-respect. You may feel grief, you may feel loss, but in reality you are giving yourself the chance to grow. The person you believed you needed was never the key to your happiness. You were always the key. The sooner you understand this, the sooner you step into the clarity that comes with release. From that clarity, You begin to notice where you have neglected yourself, where you compromised your values just to hold on to someone else. Looking back at past relationships and realizing how much of yourself you gave away can be uncomfortable. It can be difficult to accept that you sacrificed parts of your identity in the name of love, hoping someone else would fill the gaps you believed existed. But once you recognize the truth behind those attachments, your perspective begins to shift. You are not losing love. You are gaining the ability to love yourself more deeply. You gain the strength to walk away from relationships that no longer support your growth and create room for healthier connections. When you release someone who does not value you, you create the opportunity to reconnect with yourself. You stop measuring your worth through their behavior and begin defining it through your own standards. The path of detachment is not a rejection of love. It is an acceptance of the truth that genuine love begins with self-love. The stronger you stand in your own power, the more you attract people who appreciate you for who you truly are, not for who they want you to become. You no longer depend on someone else to validate your existence. Instead, you begin validating yourself. The clean break from the fantasy allows you to step into the freedom of authenticity. You stop pretending to be someone else just to fit into another person's idea of love. You become your real self, and by doing so, you invite the kind of love into your life that is built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process of rediscovering who you are without the weight of someone else's expectations. But every step you take in this direction moves you closer to reclaiming your peace and your personal power. Letting go of the fantasy is not about erasing memories or pretending the past meant nothing. It is about understanding that the person you thought you needed was never the one who would complete you. You were already whole, and once you accept that truth, you begin to realize that everything you believed you needed for happiness was already inside you. The journey towards self-love is not always simple, but it is always worthwhile. Letting go creates space for the life you truly deserve, a life where your sense of completeness does not depend on someone else's approval. You are the key to your happiness. You always have been. Pain, at its core, is not something you should run away from. It is not an enemy meant to destroy you or a burden designed to break you. In reality, pain is one of the most powerful teachers you will ever encounter. It does not ask for permission to enter your life, but when it arrives, it demands your attention. Most people try to suppress it, numb it, or distract themselves from its sting. But by doing that, they miss the lessons it carries. The moment you begin asking yourself, "What can I learn from this?" instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" everything begins to change. What once felt like punishment becomes a stepping stone toward wisdom. The Stoics deeply understood this truth. They believed life repeats its lessons until we finally understand them. If we fail to learn, the same patterns return again and again in different forms. But when we finally grasp the lesson, when we truly understand the meaning behind the pain, the cycle begins to break. In that moment of awareness, you reclaim your power. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." This is the strange paradox of pain. It does not only hurt us, it shapes us. The growth that emerges from hardship is unlike any other form of development. It forces us to question our beliefs, challenge our limits, and reshape the way we view the world. In those painful moments, we discover the depth of our resilience. When everything else is stripped away and we are left facing ourselves, we uncover strength we never realized we possessed. It is not that pain makes us strong, it reveals the strength that was already within us. But the truth goes even deeper. Pain is not only about suffering, It is about understanding. When we begin to see pain as a tool for growth, we stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstances. Instead, we become active participants in our own healing. The pain from a broken relationship, a missed opportunity, or a failed dream is not random. It exists to teach you something important. Perhaps it is teaching you how to create boundaries, how to stand up for yourself, or how to walk away from situations that do not honor your worth. Or perhaps it is teaching you that your happiness cannot depend on someone else's approval. When we start viewing pain this way, it transforms from something we fear into something we can learn from. The more we resist it, the longer it stays. But when we lean into it and ask what lesson it carries, it slowly loses its power over us. It stops controlling us. Instead, we begin controlling how we respond. The Stoics taught that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we react. In every painful experience, there is a choice. You can allow it to define you and weaken you, or you can use it to strengthen your character and become wiser. Think about the last time you experienced deep emotional pain. What lesson did it bring you? Perhaps it revealed something about trust, about self-care, or about the importance of authenticity. Maybe it exposed areas of your life where you were compromising, where you were accepting less than what you truly deserved. Pain is not just a random occurrence. It is a signal telling you that something in your life needs to change. And when you start paying attention to that signal, you begin uncovering deeper layers of who you truly are and what you genuinely need. It's also important to realize that pain doesn't last forever. In the moment, it may feel overwhelming, but that moment will eventually pass. The emotions you feel right now might be intense, but they will not define you forever. The pain you experience today will never last as long as the wisdom you can gain from it. Over time, that pain slowly transforms into something else, into understanding, into strength, and into a clearer awareness of yourself. One day you will look back at this moment not as a time when you were broken, but as a moment when you discovered the most about who you are. There is a quiet kind of peace that comes when you accept pain as a natural part of life. When you stop running from it, when you stop trying to deny or avoid it, you begin to understand that it is simply another piece of the human experience. And that understanding brings peace. The pain might have been intense, but it didn't break you. It may have hurt deeply, but it didn't destroy you. You are still standing. You are still here. And because of that, you are stronger than you were before. When you finally accept that pain isn't meant to punish you, but to teach you, everything begins to change. The Stoics believed that suffering can become our greatest teacher, but only if we are willing to learn from it. If you lean into the pain and ask what it is trying to reveal, you will discover that it no longer controls you. Instead, you emerge on the other side with wisdom and strength that help you face future challenges. The real power isn't found in avoiding pain. It's found in learning how to transform it into something that fuels your growth. When you understand this, you stop fearing pain. You start seeing it as a necessary step in your personal evolution. From that point forward, you move ahead not just surviving life, but truly thriving. Now the journey becomes even more difficult. Sometimes the lesson isn't about the person who hurt you. Sometimes the lesson is about you. How many times have you held on to someone even when, deep inside, you knew they weren't good for you? How many times have you ignored your own needs just to keep someone in your life, hoping that eventually they would recognize your value? It's easy to point fingers at someone else and blame them for the pain you feel. But what if the real lesson exists within you, in the way you allowed yourself to become entangled in someone else's behavior? in the way you sacrificed your peace just to keep the illusion of connection alive. Facing that truth is never comfortable. It can feel like a punch to the stomach, like you've been avoiding your own reflection only to discover that the answer was always right in front of you. But these realizations, as painful as they may be, are necessary for growth. Every time you gave someone more of yourself than they ever gave back, every time you allowed your boundaries to fade in the name of affection, you neglected your own needs. Maybe it was because you feared being alone, or maybe you were searching for validation, the kind that makes you feel noticed, valued, and understood. Whatever the reason, the truth remains the same. You placed someone else's needs above your own, allowing yourself to become wrapped up in their world without protecting your own. In doing so, you slowly lost yourself inside their patterns, their desires, and their expectations. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you become who you truly are if you spend most of your life trying to be the person someone else wants you to be? How can you see your real identity when you are trapped in the illusions of who others expect you to be? The real challenge is recognizing the patterns where you allowed yourself to fall into that trap. It's easy to blame another person for how things ended, to focus on their behavior as the source of your pain. But what if the real question is different? What if the question is, how did you allow this to happen? What part of you accepted less than you deserved? What part of you feared walking away, setting boundaries, or putting yourself first? When you start asking these questions, you begin peeling back the layers of your attachment. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about understanding your emotional patterns, the ways you allowed someone else's actions to shape your emotional world. As you begin untangling these emotional knots, you start to see that the only way to truly break free is by acknowledging how deeply you tied yourself to someone else's choices. Once you recognize that, it becomes clear that the real work lies in reclaiming your power. Over time, you gave pieces of yourself away without even noticing. Piece by piece, slowly and quietly, until one day you woke up and barely recognized the person you had become. Your life began revolving around someone else's presence, their approval, their affection. But once you become aware of your own patterns, once you understand the moments where you abandoned yourself, you can begin rebuilding. The key is not blaming the other person. The real key is understanding why you stayed in a situation that never truly served you. What part of you was afraid to let go? What part of you believed you were not enough on your own? Within those questions lies the beginning of real transformation. Jung's idea of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, fits perfectly here. The first step in that journey is recognizing the patterns you've been living in and realizing they were never truly yours. You were following someone else's script, allowing their actions to determine how you felt about yourself. The real journey begins the moment you reclaim your story, when you stop letting someone else's choices decide your happiness. This isn't about pushing people away or closing your heart. It's about understanding that your emotional well-being does not depend on anyone else. It depends on you. During this process, you may uncover uncomfortable truths. You might realize you accepted behavior you would never tolerate from anyone else. You may notice how your fear of loneliness caused you to settle for less than you deserved, or how your desire for validation led you to give away your peace. These realizations may sting, but they also become the catalyst for real change. When you start recognizing where you abandoned yourself, where your needs were ignored just to satisfy someone else, you begin to understand the depth of your attachment. From there, you start noticing the patterns you've been living in, and once you see them clearly, you can begin freeing yourself from them. Letting go is not something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process, sometimes painful, of rediscovering who you are outside the influence of someone you once believed you needed. It's about reconnecting with your own value and your own worth without relying on someone else's approval to confirm it. In that space of detachment, you discover your true power. And once you free yourself from the emotional patterns that kept you trapped, you begin to realize something important. The only thing standing between you and your freedom was you. Emotional detachment does not mean shutting down or becoming distant. It means reclaiming your peace and understanding that your value does not depend on anyone else's choices. It means standing firmly in your own truth, even when doing so feels uncomfortable. When you begin confronting your patterns, you stop repeating the same mistakes, you stop chasing the same illusions, and start building the life you truly deserve. Because once you understand your own patterns, once you stop abandoning yourself for someone else, you open the door to a completely different reality, one where you hold the keys to your own happiness and peace. When you fail to set boundaries, you are essentially allowing others to dictate how you should feel, how you should react, and who you should become. It becomes an unconscious surrender of your emotional independence. But when you begin setting those boundaries, something powerful begins to shift. You start taking control back. You begin deciding what is acceptable and what is not in your life, your relationships, and your emotional space. Creating boundaries is an act of self-respect. It is a promise you make to yourself, a statement that your peace, your time, and your energy truly matter. As those boundaries become clearer, you create room to rediscover who you are beneath the noise and beneath the pressure of other people's expectations. Many people fear setting boundaries because they don't want to upset anyone. They worry about rejection, conflict, or being labeled selfish. But the truth is this: avoiding boundaries does not make you kind or compassionate. It simply turns you into someone who allows others to walk over them. It makes you someone willing to lose themselves just to keep things peaceful, even if your own well-being is sacrificed in the process. Setting boundaries is not about being harsh or unkind. It is about making sure you receive the same respect you offer to others. It is about refusing to tolerate behavior that weakens your sense of self-worth. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to take back your energy, your peace, and your independence. One of the hardest truths to accept is realizing how much we have allowed others to influence our emotions. Think about the last time someone left you feeling emotionally drained, a friend, a partner, or maybe a family member. When you reflect on it, you may realize that your exhaustion was not only because of what they did, but also because you allowed their behavior to control your mood, your reactions, and even your sense of worth. Perhaps you allowed them to push your buttons, trigger your insecurities, or make you feel smaller than you are. Once you see that clearly, you begin to understand how much power you have been handing away. And recognizing that is the first step toward reclaiming it. Creating boundaries is not something you do once and forget. It is a continuous practice. Each time you say no to something that drains you, each time you stand firmly in your values and protect your needs, you strengthen those boundaries and restore your peace. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, especially if you are not used to standing up for yourself. But over time, it becomes natural. You will begin to notice something interesting. The more you respect your boundaries, the more you attract people who respect them as well. You begin surrounding yourself with individuals who value your time, respect your energy, and understand the importance of healthy relationships. Boundaries work like a filter. They allow only those who align with your values and intentions to enter your life. They create a space where you can truly be yourself without the fear of being taken advantage of. But it is important to understand that setting boundaries does not mean cutting people off or building walls around your life. It simply means protecting your emotional space while still maintaining respectful and healthy connections. Boundaries help you understand what belongs to you and what belongs to someone else. They allow you to give without losing yourself and to love without sacrificing your inner peace. This is where emotional detachment becomes freeing. You can care deeply about someone, yet no longer depend on their behavior to control how you feel. You begin loving from a place of strength rather than from a place of need. By setting boundaries, you also begin practicing self-love. You start honoring your own needs, your desires, and your personal limits. This is the true meaning of reclaiming your power. The more you prioritize your inner peace, the stronger your foundation becomes. The more you refuse what drains you, the more space you create for what nourishes your spirit. This is not selfishness. It is self-awareness, self-respect, and emotional responsibility. You become the guardian of your own emotional world, and within that responsibility, you discover a peace that no one else can take from you. Setting boundaries may not always be easy, but it is always necessary. The more you practice it, the more you reclaim your energy, your calm, and your strength. In doing so, you not only protect yourself, but you also open the door for deeper and more meaningful relationships. So begin today. Look at the areas of your life where boundaries are needed and take the first step toward protecting your peace. This is your life, and you have the right to protect it. Solitude often feels like emptiness, a quiet space filled with longing and loneliness. When you are alone, it can seem like there is nothing to fill that silence. You might even feel as though something important is missing, as if you are incomplete without the presence of others. But what if solitude was never meant to punish you? What if it was actually meant to offer you an opportunity for reflection and inner strength? For many people, being alone feels frightening. The silence can feel overwhelming, and the stillness almost unbearable. Yet the truth is that within these quiet moments lies the chance to meet your true self without the noise of the outside world. Solitude, when accepted, is not weakness, it is power. Emotional detachment requires a similar discipline, the courage to face yourself without distractions. It is easy to avoid truth by filling your life with other people's voices or constantly searching for approval from the outside world. But when you start detaching from those external pressures and allow yourself to sit with your own thoughts, clarity begins to appear. Solitude gives you the space to observe your emotional patterns, your fears, and the attachments that control you. When you are not constantly reacting to the emotions and expectations of others, you can finally hear your own voice. You begin to understand your real needs, and more importantly, you begin to respect them. This does not mean solitude is comfortable. In fact, it is often difficult. But that discomfort is part of the process of self-reflection and self-empowerment. The longer you sit with yourself, the more you begin to realize that you do not need anyone else to complete you. You are already enough exactly as you are. And realizing that can become one of the most liberating experiences of your life. When you embrace solitude, you stop relying on others to define who you are. You stop chasing approval or validation from the outside world. Instead, you begin defining yourself on your own terms. Solitude also teaches you the difference between being alone and being lonely. Many people confuse the two, but they are not the same. Loneliness comes from the feeling that something is missing, the belief that you cannot be complete without others. True solitude, however, is about wholeness. It is about feeling comfortable in your own presence and recognizing that everything you truly need already exists within you. Seneca once said, "The greatest wealth is to live content with little." Solitude is where we discover that kind of wealth. It is where we realize that we do not need constant approval or external distractions to feel complete. We simply need to learn how to be at peace with ourselves. Understanding solitude does more than transform your relationship with yourself. It also changes how you connect with the world. When you learn to sit with yourself,